My name's Ryan Schroeder, and I'm a member of the core reliability team at Netflix. Now, I realize I am between us and cocktails, so I'll try to keep this short. First, I want to ask a question. Does your team enjoy being on call? Think about that for a moment. Really? If the answer is no, do you know why? So I can honestly say I've been doing on-call at Netflix for over 13 years now, and I can honestly say if on-call is done well, I enjoy being on call. However, I've been on a team before where I did not enjoy on-call. So how is it possible then that two teams at the same company, one can have an enjoyable on-call experience and the other one not so enjoyable? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. How do you foster a positive on-call environment? Well, first and foremost, being on call should not feel like a burden. So at Netflix, like a lot of places, every service team staffs their own rotation. What this means is that each team has their own needs that makes their own on-call rotation needs unique. We, the core team, we promote operational and reliability best practices across the company, which includes how to maintain a healthy on-call rotation. But we also carry the pager for those member-impacting incidents. Now, we use that word carry the pager kind of casually, we throw that around. But I think for this particular example, it helps to set that context of how heavy is that pager? Does it feel like a burden, or is it a light burden? So at Netflix, what we try to encourage across our entire organization is that on-call is a team activity first. The team supports each other to share that burden of on-call. Secondly, it's important. On-call tasks and toil-reducing tasks, they've got to be prioritized. And then finally, on-call can be flexible. So we regularly review and adjust how we do on-call to meet the needs of the current situation. So let's dive into these. On-call being a team activity. We all know what that rough shift feels like. So when the page goes off, asking for help or escalating into the team, that's a norm that we've established across our team. We have a lot of new members on our team. They don't fully understand the system, and so we encourage them to ask for that help. Our core team, we maintain an entire team escalation policy. So if anybody needs help, when they push the escalate button, we all show up. It's kind of like the bat signal, if you will. But we celebrate when that happens because it's not a bad thing. It's recognizing that somebody says, I need help with this, and chances are it's big enough that they need more than just one person. So we put out the bat signal, people who show up do, and then we also sometimes celebrate with retros and stuff after that. Like when we were all in person, we'd get donuts, that sort of a thing. So because of that second level escalation where everybody shows up if they're asked, we've also established this team norm where you help out even without being asked, because you understand that if it starts going off the rails or starts going sideways, you're gonna get brought in anyways. And so that encourages everyone to keep an eye out on how things are going, show up when they can, and participate however they will. Another aspect of this is relieving the on-call after a tough shift. Me personally, I've been part of an incident where or a part of an overnight shift, if you will. I got paged 3 times. You come in the morning, and when it wasn't going so well, the team was like, oh, that looks like a rough shift. Almost as if they're saying, I'm glad it wasn't me. There was no recognition about how your rough shift may impact the rest of your day, no offer to relieve you or something like that. And so being on call shouldn't feel like you drew the short straw, but particularly if it's a noisy pager or those sorts of things. And then finally, distributing that follow-up work. In a similar sort of way, our team held a norm where if you were the incident commander, you're driving the most of the follow-up work because you had the most context. Again, we had a situation where one team member had 8 incidents over the course of a 2-day shift. That's way more than any one person can do, and we ended up in a situation where we're like, well, who's going to do all the work? And so we review that, we say, well, look, let's distribute that work. And so again, my call to you is, as a leader of a team, how are you making sure that on-call is a team activity? Now that it's a team activity, we have to recognize that on-call is important work. It's more than just carrying the pager and being paged. One of my favorite things about being on call is every shift gives you a chance to make the next shift better. Whether you're paged or not, review your dashboards, review your operational procedures. Because nothing makes on-call worse than showing up to an incident unprepared. Our system is constantly changing, as I'm sure all of yours are. And so when one dashboard could look one way one day, but then look different the next day. Is that an expected change? Is that a different change? But until you're aware of what's happening there, again, you could get caught unprepared. Next off, make space for that learning and curiosity. Again, we've got a lot of new team members, and so as you are on call, you need to take the time to look at a system and say, I don't know what that does. How do I engage with that to understand what it's doing in the infrastructure, what happens if it fails, where can I observe it, those sorts of things. And so, again, we encourage this whether you're an incident response team or a service team. If you're constantly being on call and you don't feel prepared, make that space for learning and curiosity. And then finally, prioritize the work that reduces that on-call burden. So again, we all know what that feels like. Being paged or being put in situations where you feel so helpless or so unprepared or unequipped to fix them, that's a recipe for burnout. And so we got to make sure we're prioritizing that on-call work. And whether it's work directly that's the contributing factors to the incidents, or if it just makes operations that much easier, it has to be prioritized. And then finally, on-call is flexible. Make that on-call rotation work for you. There are various levers that you can use to adjust the rotation, and you'd be surprised how simple but effective they are at reducing that burden of on-call. One of the easiest ones is the shift length itself. So in an ideal world, we run a 2-2-3 rotation, which means the weekdays and then the weekend are a separate shift. When our team is well-staffed, that's great. It's a wonderful duration between shifts. But one time our team got down to only 5 people, and that meant we're on call about every 10 days. That just started to weigh on us as a team. And so one of the easiest things that we did is we moved to a 3-4 shift, so 3 days and then a 4-day shift over the weekend. So again, it's those simple things that you don't have to silently suffer with an on-call rotation that's not working for you. You can adjust them as needed. Another thing that we do is during our holiday quiet period, rather than, again, being that member that draws the short straw of who's on call for Christmas or who's on call for which day, we set up a schedule and we say, put in your availability, we'll go day by day, and that makes balancing those commitments across family activities or other times like that more tenable. We'll even hyper-focus that on, say, an on-site week where nobody wants to be on call and miss all of the sessions. So we'll even split up our shifts into like 6-hour shifts, the morning shift, the night shift, and then an overnight shift or an evening shift. So again, make the on-call work for you. When we talk about coverage and escalation, again, I mentioned that our team maintains an entire rotation for when we get paged. Maybe that's not sustainable. Maybe you have a secondary rotation. But you got to keep in mind that a secondary rotation is almost the same as carrying 2 rotations now. So again, there's trade-offs to make there. How does your handoff work? We used to hand off at midnight. We didn't have a lot of incidents overnight, but the handoff at midnight didn't really get a lot of confidence that the person you're handing off to was available and ready to take it over. So a simple thing of just shifting that during the daytime. Again, these are simple things to do, but they make that on-call feel more flexible. And then finally, the duties. Again, being on call is part of the job. It's a wonderful part of the job, but when you incorporate the duty routine around it, it helps take away that ambiguity of what happens if who's doing what, And so, again, come up with a duty rotation schedule. Those are some of the things that we've done to make on-call flexible. So with that, I want to leave you with this. Improving on-call improves team health. Nothing is worse than showing up to an incident, being unprepared, feeling alone. Those are the kinds of things that really destroy a team, that make the feeling of burden, the feeling of on-call a burden. And by keeping on-call a team activity, important and flexible, you can foster that effective and positive on-call environment. Thank you.